bothered by these hard plastics because they actually look really good. And how often am I going to be touching this? Never. The one thing that is funky is this fixed screen. I thought it would flip down when I turn the car off and flip up when I turn it on, but apparently it's just a static fixed element, and there's a little tray here, is what it seems like, for pens or something so they can rattle, but I don't really care for it because the screen itself feels like it's angled down, and I always have this instinct like I want to push it at the top here to kind of angle it up a little bit so it's easier for me to see. And I'm only 6 feet tall, and I'm sitting in the chair quite nicely. I'm comfortable, but I don't get a good line of sight on that screen. That's kind of annoying. But for the fit and finish, this is right up there with all the other Audis. I don't know why some people want to complain about it. This reminds me here of the TT, maybe the older A3. The dials themselves are very logical. They're large. I can see them. I can feel them. And the touch is great. The tactile feedback is good. And there's also the auto feature. So I don't really have to do anything. I just set the temp. I got a great visual of the display here, so I don't really have to go hunting for the temperature. I can just set it to 71, put it on auto, and let it do the work for me. I don't need to keep fiddling around with it. That's what air conditioning should be like, just like it is in your home. You just set the temp you want, and the car will reach it, and it will maintain that. That's all I want. One thing I'm not a fan of is the black headliner. This seems to be a trend in a lot of cars. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. It gives me a claustrophobic feeling. I feel very trapped in the car, and as big as this car is inside, and as large as this panoramic sunroof is, I feel like it's not enough car, or I feel like I'm just being squashed in a can, and that's because of the black headliner, the black pillars. I like the large air vents. Large air vents always allow me to have better air flow. The smaller P-size vents that you'll see in other cars direct too much airflow to one specific area. I like to diffuse the air with a large vent, and this is doing exactly what I want. A nice large diffusion. I've always had Audis with MMIs down by the lower armrest in the center, so the instinctual reaching for the bottom here is what I'm doing most of the time, and I'm having a hard time associating myself with these buttons up here. Audis and buttons are a thing of beauty. However, the knobs and everything laid out, this reminds me of the old C-Class with the confusion I'm getting, like next and back is actually not any of these buttons next to the knob, it's actually above it. And Mercedes did something similar to that, and I was never a fan of that. So, in a way, I would consider this a stale design as far as the usability. It looks good, I could glance at it. I don't understand why we have car here and then we have drive select down here, which does the same thing. But whatever, I guess that's what they wanted. Also, another feature that is great are the parking sensors. I can activate the rear camera at any time. Navigation is your typical Audi navigation. It's flawless. I don't have the SIM card in this car, but if I did, I would have Google Earth and I would have Wi-Fi capability, and I still have satellite traffic, which is good. The acceleration in this car is very ho-hum. That's all you can expect out of a four-cylinder, really. I really think that this Q3 would be irresistible if it had the 2-liter diesel engine that they stick in the Golf, and the Passat, and the Jetta, and the A3. Why it is not in the Q3 and why it's not in the Volkswagen Tiguan is a mystery to me. And if it had something torquey, something plucky, even though it wouldn't make the car any faster, it would just feel more fun. And that's the one thing this car is really missing. And it was also my big complaint about the Mercedes GLK. I drove a GLK 350 a couple years ago, and I thought, man, if they made a GLK 55 AMG or a GLK 63 AMG, that chunky little off-roader would have been such a gnarly beast, and I wouldn't hesitate to trade in my firstborn for one. However, in this Q3, I feel like I'm in an Audi. I don't feel like I'm in a tarted up brand offshoot of something else, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out on anything at the same time. I still have blind spot assist, I still have very comfortable seats, I still have great navigation, and overall, I don't care for the ride, and it feels too bobby, it's too up and down, it's too pantomime for me. And it is a truck, and I guess that's the point that they're trying to create here, is you're not in a SUV like a car, you're actually in a car like an SUV, which is funny because the platform of this car isn't based on that new MQB architecture with the A3 and the Golf. This is actually based on the architecture of the Mark V Golf. And does this feel like a Golf? No. It's very roomy in here, like a Golf always is, but it doesn't feel front-wheel drive oriented. It doesn't feel like a Golf at all. And that's not a bad thing, and it's not a good thing. I just think that if you're in the price point for a starter Audi and you need an SUV, this would be something I would consider. Although, because there's no diesel version of this car, I would be looking at the GLK 250 diesel from Mercedes. And then I would drive the Q3 and see how they feel back to back. Now we're traveling on the freeway here at 65 miles an hour, and you're hearing some road noise translate through from the tires, but I hear a very faint wind noise in the A-pillars close to the top of the windshield. Other than that, this is at 70 miles an hour now, a rather predictable ride. It's solid. I don't have any body roll. The straight line stability is fantastic. It's not pulling left to right. There's no torque steer. And the engine, you can't even hear it. Of course, that might be drowned out by the tires. But could I drive this daily? Yeah. Would I take it on a road trip? No. The engine itself is pretty much bottom of the line in the Volkswagen Group lineup, and it's nothing too special from Audi. It's just ho-hum. And, you know, in this respect, that's fine. It's still got heated seats, which I can't get in a base Golf. But I'm not an SUV guy either, so, you know, the SUVs themselves, I've never appealed to me. I'd rather have a wagon, and I'd rather have a hatchback before I'd have a wagon, and I'd rather have a convertible before I have a hatchback. But you got to have your priorities, and it all depends on what you're up to. This car might be good if you're looking to have something to let your babysitter or your nanny drive, or if you're going to drive some kids around on a daily basis. This might be an okay car just to pick them up from school with. It's got great visibility. It handles well. There's not too much body roll. You know, you have a lot of comfort selections you can make. And with quattro all-wheel drive, as designated here by the fixture, you can pretty much drive this thing year-round. I'm sure there are some situations where it would get bogged down, but on a daily basis, you know, if you really got to get to work, take the Q3. If you got to pick up the kids, take the Q3. If you got to go to the grocery store, if you got to go to Home Depot, take the Q3. Now, it takes a long time to get to Redline. For a nanny car, I guess, that's not a bad thing at all, right? the last thing you want to give a 16-year-old is a really potent car. And I think if you had a caretaker or someone who you wanted to shuttle around your family, this ho-hum ho-hum car is just perfect. It'll get the job done. And it'll still be stylish, and it'll still be capable because it's an Audi and it's got quattro. The last thing you're going to hear about from your assistant is that it's constantly using too much fuel. This thing is sipping fuel at this point. I'm still only averaging 23.2 miles per gallon, and I've driven it 21 miles so far. And I think that with my driving style, I don't think I can get any worse than this. I think it's a good time to stop at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf and grab some tea. I don't like that the doors automatically unlock when I put it in park, especially when I'm in the city. Just not my kind of thing. A nice feature is the backup camera with the radar sensors, and then obviously when you turn your wheel you get the aspects, which makes it very easy to back up. Especially with these inboard seats, I have a hard time turning around all the way to look around. Number one, because I do have an old injury in my neck, and then number two, these seats are so centered to the car that you really have to turn around, and that's difficult when these seats are so snug. I just noticed a compartment down here on the left side of my knee. Interesting compartment. Great for glasses. I guess they need that because they no longer have the glasses department up here. Glasses compartment near the rearview mirror. I don't see one in this car. Normally that's a typical Audi thing. Comfort mode's a little too comfortable, so I'm going to put it in auto. I like this actual switch. That keeps me from having to go through the menu to do all these steps just to get back to a different mode, especially when I want to quickly change modes. The switch here for drive select helps me a lot. It's a great improvement over other Audis like the A6, the A7, the Q5, I think has that button now. The A8 is what I was thinking of. So those more expensive sedans don't have that quick access to change drive select. Get out of sport mode here. Let's put it back in drive. Just knock the shift lever forward one, and it goes from S to D. Obviously it upshifts from 5th to 6th. The beauty is I still have paddle shifters. So downshift by pulling on the paddle on the left side of the steering wheel. Now we're in M5. And I upshift by pulling on the paddle on the right. Now we're in M6. And it will be in manual mode for a certain period of time. And when I refrain from shifting after that period of time, which has been now, it reverts back to standard drive mode. So if I want to manually control a car, I could use the paddles, or I could knock the shift gear lever to the right, and now I'm in M6, and I can pull it back to downshift, pull it back again. Now we're in M4, and I can accelerate. How about 3? Upshift, 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear. And now I've safely gone around the lunatics in the traffic, knock it back into drive. I'm in drive. I'd say that if you have driven a few Volkswagen Golfs in your lifetime, if you've owned a few and you want to upgrade to an all-wheel drive car that's still as small as the Golf, this Q3 Quattro would be a great transition give up the Golf GTI and get into a Q3 2.0, you're essentially gaining all-wheel drive, you're gaining higher ground clearance, you're getting the same sort of configuration in the back with split folding seats and a hatch, and you're basically getting a higher quality, higher design quality on the interior, and it's a smooth ride. I would just stay with the standard wheel sizes. I wouldn't opt for the silly things like a black headliner or any of that. I would just stay as basic as possible, and that would be a great shift to get me out of a Golf and into an SUV. Braking effort is excellent in all Audis, and this one in particular, I can, even with this ho-hum engine, I can feel the modulation when I come to a stop, and the way the pressure is required to really force the car to scrub speed. In the city, you will never really have to put your foot down hard, but if you do, if you get cut off, or if you're not really paying too much attention, or the car in front of you is stopping quicker than you expected, you just put your foot down in this car on the brakes, and you feel the response through the pedal, and that response is immediate and as accurate as the stopping power that you feel in the seat of your pants. There is no finer braking technique that you can perfect than when you're in an Audi. Another thing is that when you park the car and then you want to get out, you forget, oh, I left the sunroof shade open. So you want to hit the button here to shut it. And if you've opened your door, you don't have that control. And I would really like it if I could open and close the shade, at least just the shade, not the sunroof, while the car was off. So I have to now go back in the car and then hit the shade button. I can turn the car off, and the shade will continue to shut eventually. Now I can get out.